today. So welcome everyone to our Growth U Sport webinar. So this is our first Growth U Sport webinar. Who's excited? I know I am.
All of us are so excited.
I think so. I think so. And we are really thrilled. And of course, as we're coming on, little pings are coming on Paul's computer. So we'll just ignore those and know that we are here today because we are also passionate about empowering you to grow. And we have two amazing educators who are so passionate about empowering not only individuals to grow, but coaches, athletes, youth, you name it. So I'm Denise Mend, one of the leads at Growth U, and we are so thrilled to introduce Growth U Sport today. Many of you have heard of it already, and this is kind of our first official, feels like our first official webinar. So I want to introduce these two amazing people. To my right,
yeah, maybe the left on your screen.
yeah, is Paul Mend, my partner in life. And Paul has been with Growth U for over 7 years individually and as a lead for at least 2, if not 3, and educated youth at the high school level mainly for over 30 years, taught psychology. So these two have psychology in common, very passionate about psychology. You will hear about Amy in a minute. Paul also coached volleyball mainly, also coached basketball and a few other sports along the way.
Badminton.
And mainly volleyball from youth to middle school to high school to college to select teams. So if you want to talk coaching, these two people could spend hours. Amy Suter above me is also as passionate, if not more passionate, I think, than everybody in the room about empowering people through mindset and psychology. She is a beautiful mom of 3 amazing kiddos and partner to Dustin. They've been with Growth U for about the same amount of time as we have. And Amy started off her athletic career as a softball athlete, and then went on to play at university at the University of Washington, where she did a psychology degree, and then went on to Texas Tech and coached there as she was pursuing her doctorate in sports psychology, and then came back to Washington, where I think her heart is, and also coached at Western Washington University for 8 years, and has empowered hundreds, if not thousands, of athletes with the power of mindset. So today you are in for a treat, whether you coach, whether you are an athlete, whether you empower anyone from youth to high school to college and everything in between, whether you're working on growth yourself, you're going to learn something about the cycle of growth and the cycle of performance today. And hint, they're the same thing. So welcome everybody. I can't wait for you to hear from these two people. So I'm going to pull up
First off, Paul, if we're ever, feeling bad about ourselves, we'll just ask Denise to host a webinar and she can introduce us. Goodness.
Right? Exactly.
Well, come on, you guys. I mean, you two are rock stars. Just saying.
Well, I was going to say that you worked with, national team coaches, you worked with Major League Baseball players, you the list could just go on and on with
Goodness. Let's not do that.
Okay. So the power of growth. What is the cycle of performance? So we have these two beautiful people, Amy and Paul, and in the background Big John, who
he might be an athlete too.
He might be an athlete. There's a few of them.
Played at West Virginia, a little bit of a basketball player. Also one of our advisors.
Yeah, and so if you haven't already figured it out, we are passionate about growth, about optimizing growth and learning through this mindset model. This is just one of many. So Paul, tell us a little bit about this. Paul's going to go back and forth with Amy about this cycle.
Yeah, so I think this is ultimately, when it comes to mindset, this model right here is probably the lead model when we're going to talk about mindset, because anytime that we're in the world of psychology, changing our brain or changing or learning something new, whether it's driving a car, learning a new sport, learning a new skill in a sport, any of those things, a cycle of growth is going to, or cycle of performance, as we can refer to it as well, is going to
Look at that. They're the same thing.
But we just went from cycle of growth to cycle of performance, just like that. So, we'll just start from the top. I mean, and think about this like a skateboard ramp, right? So that you're going back and forth, because you never get there to identity and stay there. You're always moving back into what we call Inception. And so in Inception, what we know is somebody that just made your team, super excited. They're like, I made the team. I made Amy's team. I'm going to be a softball player. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. That whole process. And what we know is that excitement will last for a little while till they show up to the first practice, maybe the second practice, and the second practice, all of a sudden they're going to realize that they don't know what they don't know. So we call it unconscious incompetence. Like, they don't know what they don't know. They're just excited to be there. They're excited to have made the team. Their attitude is high. Their confidence is unconsciously incompetent, or competence, sorry. And then their effort is high. They're excited. They're just so happy to be there. And then we move into what we call deception or resistance. And I'm going to throw it over to Amy here.
Next, Amy?
Amy, what happens when after day 2 or day 3 of practice, and they realize that they don't know what they don't know?
I love it. I love this model, both of them. And I love that we have growth and performance back to back, right? Yes, they are the same. And it's just, what platform are we working on, right? Like, are we growing? Are we performing? They're the same thing. So that's awesome. And yes, your example of wanting to make a team makes me think of so many high school athletes that I've been around lately, and their desire to play sports in college. They've been, right? That's been a desire since they're 8 or 9 years old. And they're a little bit nervous about it, but they're so excited about the opportunity to play. And so you beautifully described what Inception is. And it's funny because I tell these kids, it's interesting. I'm going to go a little psychology on us a little bit, but we have this thing called our conscious mind, which is us thinking. And that's what you're doing right now, watching this webinar. Who in the heck are these people? Am I really going to learn something in the next 15 minutes? You're thinking and you're evaluating and you're making decisions. That's all with our conscious mind. And then we have this other thing in our nervous system called our unconscious mind, which it's the thing that's running all of our patterns and our habits and all the things that we do without thinking about them. In fact, it runs our heart, right? And it allows us to breathe. It does all of those things. But the main thing here is to remember that our unconscious mind, the thing that can't think and only runs our programs, its only job is to keep us exactly who we were yesterday, exactly who we were 10 minutes ago. So it has no desire to grow, and it has no desire to perform, and it can't think. And so what ends up happening is when Paul, told us, like, we're super pumped for the thing, it's because we're consciously excited for the thing. And then when we get into this deception phase, that he's handed the baton to me, and our unconscious mind says, we're not going to do this thing called play college, right? Sports. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. And it's so fun to have this conversations with coaches and with athletes, say, hey, that's not you. It's how you're wired. That's how your nervous system is wired. Of course, we hit this thing called deception because our unconscious mind's getting nervous. It's becoming uncomfortable. You're doing something different. And so what's going to happen? That little A that we see, your attitude's going to drop. Of course, we're not going to be excited anymore because now we're consciously incompetent. Now we know what we don't know, right? Oh, this practice stuff. How in the heck am I going to practice for 4 hours? Not maybe 4 hours, and then go to class and then get in the weight room and eat what I'm supposed to. My mom's not here to do my laundry for me anymore. We're consciously incompetent. We have no idea. We know exactly what we don't know how to do. And so our effort drops. It becomes low and oftentimes non-existent. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of people quit in sport, in life. They hit that deception phase. And another piece here, 95% of who we are is unconscious, which means I always tell kids this: if you were on a football field and you had 95 people on one side of the field and 5 on the other side of the field and you said go, which team's winning? The 95, right? Your unconscious mind's going to win. Like your willpower will never outpace your unconscious mind. And that is what deception is showing us. And that's why people quit. So what do we do next, Paul?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I absolutely love that deception description. And, back in psychology, when I taught psychology, I always talked about a toolbox, right? And the tools in our toolbox that we take with us. And Amy just spoke to that really well, that unconscious mind, those habits and patterns. And as a coach, we've got athletes from all areas, all spectrums. And so, each athlete is coming in with a different toolbox with different tools in that toolbox. So you may have some athletes on your team who, have a really high IQ for the sport because their parents played that sport or whatever that looks like. And you may have some kids who have no tools in their toolbox because like their parents were not athletic. And so they're coming in raw, but they're all athletes, and their toolbox, so to speak, has different tools in it. So some are going to be here, some are going to be here. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to raise everybody's level, right? We want to bring that team concept. And so we move. And so that if we get them through deception, that unconscious, or the conscious competence to say, hey, we're going to work on this. We're going to, it's you versus you. Your skill is going to get better at this, whatever it is, serving, pitching, shooting free throws, whatever it looks like. We're going to practice. We're going to practice. We're going to practice. We're going to practice. Your conscious brain is going to start to let your unconscious brain know that, hey, we can do this and we're not giving up. Listen, unconscious brain, I'm sticking with this. My coach is supporting me. My teammates are supporting me. And we move into something called transformation. And this is now where we're consciously competent. We're understanding that, okay, yeah, I don't know these skills set like the way that the coach wants me to do it. I was maybe taught by another coach, or my mom or dad told me to do it this way. And now my coach is telling me to do this, and I'm going to do it. And I know in the cycle of performance that maybe my skill set might drop a little bit from where I started, but I know that if I keep working at it and do what coach is telling me, that transformation, we're going to fluctuate. We're going to get a little better. We're going to get a little worse. We're going to get a little bit better, but eventually we're going to start moving up. And then that consciously competent aspect. And now my effort is high, right? Because now I believe that I'm moving in the direction. I can see the transformation in my performance. I'm believing, right? It's that belief concept, because in deception, the unconscious brain is going, oh, I don't know if I believe this stuff, or I don't know. And now all of a sudden, what's really exciting is we could spend some time in transformation. And guess what? Your unconscious brain's going to drag your behind back to deception a couple times, maybe. And you're going to go, no, I can do this. And you're going to stick in transformation. And then I'm going to throw it back to Amy, because we moved from transformation into
identity. Yeah. Yes, we do. And it's so interesting that you say this, because deception's hard, right? I mean, that's that space of ick. And but it's actually transformation where, like you said, all that effort has to be, because I'm working hard right now. Like I know what I need to do, and it's not at the habit level, which means it's this constant grind. And I know for me as an athlete, I had a hard time also moving from transformation to identity, for what you said, a belief, right? In that belief space, I remember I was recruited to play middle infield in college, and I ended up catching. And my first season, when I had to go play in those first games, I didn't believe that I was ready. I was more in love with the idea of working hard. I had all my certainty in the idea that I can work hard. And it was at some point you had to let go of the wheel, right? And trust the process of, I'm ready to just go play in the game. I'm going to allow myself to get in state, get into that flow, and just play the game, that is what identity is, right? Identity, your attitude's high because you're exactly where you need to be. You have all of the programs that we were lacking in that deception space. You worked hard in transformation to create the programs that your nervous system, your unconscious mind is going to run without you even having to think about it, which means your effort gets to become lower or non-existent in this moment. It's doing things like riding bikes, and I always say brushing your teeth, right? Like you don't think eating. It's so fun. I always think about little kids, 2-year-olds trying to eat Cheerios, right? Like they're chasing the Cheerio around in their bowl and they can't find their mouth with the spoon. And we can all eat our Cheerios at the identity level now. We have that cereal eating program. So What is identity? Identity is that, or unconsciously competent, right? We just do the thing without even thinking about it. Of course, our attitude's high, and because we can do the thing without thinking about it, the effort's low or non-existent. And a thing that I want to mention, in now that we've completed the cycle of performance, is there's only 2 stages that you can live in, right? You can live at identity because you can eat cereal just fine all the time without thinking about it, and you can live in deception. But the thing that we can't do is we can't stay in that inception space where I'm pumped and excited forever and ever. And we can't live in that transformation phase where I'm working. So which one would you rather live in? The identity of doing the thing without thinking about it and the effort being low, or sitting in all of your excuses and justifications in deception?
So
I'm just going to jump in on that for a
please.
second,
Yeah.
because as we're speaking to coaches here, and I talked about the toolbox, as a coach, I want you to think about your toolbox and who you were coached by and all of the things that you carry with you as an athlete. You may have been a high level athlete turned coach. You may have been like the glue part of the team, this guy here, who, just fell in love with a certain sport and became very passionate about it, and then coached, at a level of difference between somebody who maybe had been an athlete where it came really easy, where you have to break skills down for kids and do these things. And so that mindset piece of what tools do you have in your toolbox? How do you give those tools to your athletes? How do those athletes absorb those tools in this, model that we speak to? And there's a whole bunch of other models. And one of the cool things is, as a coach, and I know Amy, back in the day, I would give my athletes, and if any of my ex-athletes are watching this, you get a piece of paper with a famous quote on it, or I'd read you something, or we'd watch a video, or we talk about Pat Riley, we talk about Phil Jackson, we talk about John Wooden, we talk about all these other coaches that were these great coaches that had different ways of doing things. And what we know is that when we show up in practice, it's all about skills. Stuff like that. We got to get the skills done. We got to get the skills done. And what we know is that if you talk to higher level coaches, mindset is the most important aspect of our athletes that are showing up, whether it's at the high school level or the college or university or national team level or pro, right? And so I think being able to have a bunch of models similar to this to be able to utilize for your athletes, which doesn't take a lot of time to explain, and you can fit it in practice where you don't have to be giving them pieces of paper and doing these things. That's the magic part of the programs that we have here at Growth Youth Sport.
Yeah. And I wanted to just briefly ask both of you in the short time that we have left, because we could chat with you guys for hours here, and we hope that you join us for more, and you'll find out in a few minutes how you can. But I just wanted to ask both of you, we talked about that little skateboard ramp of the cycle of growth or performance. How do you, just in a few brief words, both of you, how do you support athletes or coaches who are going through that deception phase and then into transformation? What would be a couple of key things you would do to support them? Amy, do you want to go first?
Okay, sure, I will. I would love to. So I think that the most important, you said this earlier, Paul, is what everyone knows, right? Mindset is the it factor. And we all say it, but we don't really have that toolbox to give athletes. And if we do, we tell them things like be positive, like say nice things to you, have presence, right? Like we talk about all of the things, but what you find inside of our programs is a language. You find a language, you find models like that describe exactly what these kids are feeling, what you're feeling as a coach, and it gives you the language and able to empower what mindset really is, to give them that tools, the language to not only explain it but integrate it into their play. So the most important part, I think, in the cycle of performance is exactly that, is awareness and language. Because guess what? You're going to go through that cycle of performance over a long goal, maybe for an entire season. In a practice, you're going to go through that cycle of performance maybe in 2 hours, right? So it's life and performance, and sport is all about continually going through the cycle of performance. So when we're excited, awesome. Let's use it. Let's make sure that we're in that space. I tell my athletes, use your imagination. Like this is the place where you can really think big. Possibility is created here, and know that guess what? that deception's coming, we're going to celebrate it, right? Instead of being afraid of it, instead of allowing it to rock our world, we're going to laugh at it when it comes, because it's just our unconscious mind getting uncomfortable, which means, heck yeah, we're growing, we're getting better. And that's what we want. And so, Denise, I really believe that the key is just the awareness so the athletes understand themselves better. Like, all right, I'm not weird. I'm not different. Everybody goes through this deception phase. It's just part of the process. And yeah, as your coach, I'm going to hold you accountable day in and day out and day in and day out. And guess what? That's transformation. And that's my job. So that we can all reach identity. So my buzzword and how do I support athletes and coaches through the cycle of performance awareness and let the principles do their work.
Love that so much. And we must go through that to get to a new identity, learn something new. Yeah.
No jumping from inception to identity. Doesn't happen.
I know.
Well, and yes, to everything you just said, and those people that are coaching high school or middle school athletes, understand that not only are they developing an identity as an athlete, but they're actually developing their own identity in life, right? And you get to work with these kids, young adults, at a really crucial point in their life, and to give them some support. And I think one of the things that Amy touched on that I'll speak a little bit more to is that, over the years of 40 years of coaching, I'm sure I may have called out an athlete or two on something that they were doing that was like, no, you can't. And what I love about these models is it allows you to speak to the behavior and the pattern that you're seeing, and you're not attacking the individual. And, over the years of a Bobby Knight type coach, or old school coaching, as we'll call it, when somebody calls out a specific athlete and they go after them to try and motivate them for whatever fear reason that that coaches thinks, this is the way that I was coached. That's the toolbox. What tools do you carry in your toolbox? So if you're that old school, I'm going to drive you so hard that you're going to either quit or you're going to figure it out. Or you can speak to the pattern and the behavior going, this is what I'm seeing. And I don't know if this is the way that you're thinking, but this is what I'm seeing. And now all of a sudden we're having a conversation of, oh, that's an interesting pattern. I don't think I was doing that, but that's interesting. Now we have something to talk about. We have a common language where I'm not attacking the player. I'm speaking to their pattern or behavior. And we know that patterns and behaviors can be shifted, right? And so the athlete now doesn't feel attacked. And it's a really beautiful, and I wish, and I think over the years, I tried to stick more to that, but I didn't have these models to really utilize and put in my toolbox. And now, it's a totally different story. So to those coaches out there that are watching this, I think it'd be super beneficial for you just to hit that 30-day, learn some of the models to be able to utilize with your athletes, with your other coaches, especially if you've got new coaches who maybe played the sport 20 years ago, their kids are now coming through, because we got some different type of athletes right now.
Yeah.
Our kids that we're coaching.
Chris McCoy just said that the kids are different, right?
Yeah. And so,
Mhm.
and I'll speak to the kids really quickly, and then I'll let Amy speak to it because I know she's working with them as well. And what we know is, because of what we've been through for the last few years, kids age-wise, they may be 13, they may be 14, they may be 15, but cognitively and emotionally, they're probably 2 or 3 years behind, because some kids weren't in school. Some kids were, it really transitioned. So when you walk into a school setting now, and been there, done that, kids are just at a different state. And so as an adult, as a parent, if I'm coming in, and again, my toolbox, I was coached by so-and-so and so-and-so, and this is how they told me to do it, so you should do it this way too. And that may not work with today's kids, right? It may not work with today's athletes. It may work with your child, but we got a whole team. And again, their toolboxes are going to be quite different and may not be as receptive to the way you were coached to the way that they need to be coached. Amy?
So Amy, what's next?
I love it. Yeah. And it's such a tease, because that's just a performance model. Like, that's just one of many. As Paul's talking, I'm like, oh, we should talk about the colors and the IC4. And you guys, I'm just hinting that that's another model all around connection and communication. And how do I speak to kids' emotional needs in the moment, not to their personalities, but, and all of that is in our Jumpstart program. And it's a 30-day program that takes you through performance, leadership, communication. I mean, everything that we're using as coaches to help our athletes and to better understand ourselves as well. So that's what's next. What's next is that you're going to join us for a Jumpstart 30-day program. And we get to deliver all of this beautiful information that I know has been life-changing for us personally, for us as coaches, and more importantly, to be able to pass on to these athletes for, on the platform of sport. And we know that it changes lives.
Yeah. And so what I've done, everyone, is put in the comments the form that describes Jumpstart and the whole process in more detail. So click on that link. If you're watching this on replay, this link will be in the comments below, whether you get it on YouTube or a link from us, we will attach it. It has all the details, and know that you can reach out to any of us. When do we start, Amy?
We start next Monday.
January 16th.
Monday.
So we've got a few minutes. Does anybody, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, we'll send you the link, Christopher McCoy. Any questions or comments from the people who have been watching live before we sign off today? This has been so much fun. Like I said, I could listen to these guys talk about coaching and mindset all day long. Just looking at the comments on my computer.
Right,
Paul's
Renee
computer.
Roberts just popped on. We're just finishing up, Renee, but we will make sure you get the replay video.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
'cause I know you got an athlete in the house.
absolutely. Any final comments, Amy?
I don't believe so. I'm just pumped to see all of you guys inside of Jumpstart, whether it be this round or whenever you see this in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be an
That's a great
amazing
point.
program.
Know
Yeah.
that we are going to be running this often, and we definitely want you in this first version because it's an amazing price, by the way.
it is.
There's a deal that you won't get again in this go round. And Paul,
I'm just going to say to the coaches who are watching this, if this is something that's like, oh, that's quite interesting. We also have programs for athletes. And what we recommend is that you go through this program so you're speaking the language. So when the athletes go through it, now you have a common language to speak to each other of growth mindset, so that it's, again, you're speaking to behaviors and habits and patterns and not to the individual.
Yeah.
And it's the new way of coaching.
I love
especially with today's athletes.
I love the common language piece, right? We all have a common language to understand what our brain is doing as we're learning new skills on the field and off. Love you both. Love you all that are watching.
You.
Live. Love everybody that's watching on the replay. We cannot wait to help you empower athletes, individuals, friends, family in your life, and most importantly, you. So until next time, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye.